Hello and welcome to Ask Lovecraft After Dark. As we begin the winding down of the regular production of Ask Lovecraft, we're inviting folks onto the show that have meant a great deal to the show, to me, and I can't think of someone who doesn't match that better than Molly Tanzer. Molly, welcome back.
Hi, I'm back. Hi.
Molly, as folks who are longtime viewers will know, has been on the show. She's been on the show proper. We ran into each other out in Portland in 2015. I think the only time we've actually met in meet space.
Like almost 7 years ago. Yeah.
We were at the secret speakeasy party.
Yeah.
I
still have that hat.
I was about to say you were dressed for it. I was just in my Lovecraft garb, which is cheap.
You were in a suit. That was good. You're of the era. You were inherently of the era.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And then we've had you on both for After Dark and various gaming with Scott Glancy. We did the Microsoft of Madness gaming for a little bit. You GM'd me as a hapless little acolyte in Warhammer.
And you ran a game of Numenera.
Numenera, yes. You were like a sort of Nightcrawler with like a Christ complex or something. There's all sorts of stuff going on in that game.
Yeah, I was sort of like Nebula, but I don't know.
It was a good time.
It was a good time. We could go into a hole and kill some things.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And right now you are basking in the glow of someone who has stayed off social media and is staying away from all the mess and all the nightmare. Oh wait, Molly, have you been creeping back onto the socials?
I try not to, but sometimes I pop on. And today it was because there's a storm a-brewing right in my area. There's incoming snow and ice.
Okay. This is not a QAnon snow. A QAnon storm. No. Okay, good.
No, I don't. That's the thing I'm saying. I don't know anything about this. No, I mean so weather is traditionally hard to predict in the Boulder Valley because we get the is it they call it the lake effect from the mountains in this Boulder and St. Ray.
The only thing I know about Colorado is that sometimes it gets cowy. That's all I know.
Yes, it does get cowy. It does smell like, we say it smells like Greeley, which is unkind to Greeley, but also it is accurate of Greeley. And so like when weather comes over the mountains, when there's a valley, I think there's something called the lake effect, and it makes it more unpredictable and also milder than you might necessarily experience. Is that your dog?
We're good.
Oh, okay, sorry. So yeah, we just get less snow than you would think in my area of Colorado, and because of the lake effect, and also it just makes it hard to predict. So they've been like, it's going to snow for days, and it snowed like an inch last night. They were like 3 to 6 inches, and then tonight again it's like more snow. And so I was like, is it really real? And I went on, and yeah, I don't know. I got poisoned. My brain got poisoned again by Twitter. So,
oh no! What did Twitter do this time?
Twitter today was talking about whether or not it's important to read the classics. And
like Homer or all of it?
Well, it was largely about science fiction and fantasy.
Okay.
And horror, I guess, since they're all sort of adjacent fields. But it really was sort of about like, do you need to read the people who are, I guess, I mean, they do call themselves, I mean, it is called the golden age of science fiction, even if I would say that maybe I like science fiction from different ages better. But right, like the genre has a history, and it was a conversation about, do you need to read the history of the genre to be conversant in it, to be part of, do you have to do that to be legitimate? And as of course, Twitter turned it into a very interesting conversation.
So like, I mean, I know there was the whole like conflagration when like John Campbell was called a fascist at like,
yes,
you know, was that Hugo's where that went down?
Hugo Awards in 2019 in Dublin, I think.
And so is this sort of like knock on from that, like sort of just like all like science fiction and fantasy of like these great men like Asimov and you know?
Yeah, I think that there is a, speaking only from my own experience as someone who's been a reader of science fiction and fantasy since I could read, and also someone who's been sort of writing and publishing in this community since 2009. like, I do think that there is a lot of anxiety that people feel over the history of the genre. Like, who do you have to read to be conversant? And I think that there's like a lot going on there, right? Because it is true that people will ding you for not having read various grandmasters of science fiction and fantasy. They'll be like, oh, well, like, you haven't read the collected works of Heinlein, and therefore, and it's like, okay. And there is sort of a gatekeeperism about that. And especially because the field is so small, and the amount of time that it's really existed as in its current incarnation as whether it's a literary movement or a publishing movement, I don't know, right? But like, people know these people still today, right? Like, there's still a living history of this. And so there is a lot of sort of like gatekeeping to inclusivity here that has a lot to do with reading what we would consider a canon. But I do think that there's a mistake in thinking that you have to read it all. Like, it's like, I've only ever finished one Heinlein novel. I've tried 3.
I like The Man Who Sold the Moon. I thought that was fun.
I read that. I read
I like his short. I like his short stories. Yeah, Starship Troopers. I mean,
I read Starship Troopers, why I could finish Starship Troopers and could not make it through Stranger in a Strange Land, we will never know. But I mean, I got like 30 pages from the end, and I asked my partner at the time, and I was like, what happens? And he was like, I don't know. He dies, they eat his leg. And I was like, that's it, I'm done. Like, I read so much of it, and I just couldn't get into The Moon as a Harsh Mistress. But like, so like, I get it, right? I understand. And I really do not like Asimov, right? Like, I don't find anything to relate to. I read the second book of the Foundation. Don't ask me why, but I read the second book of the Foundation and Empire trilogy, and I was just like, I don't think so, right? Like, and I've dabbled in these. I know a little bit of what I'm talking about, but I'm obviously not the best read person in the world. But I do think I have gotten a lot of value out of reading these things, and I don't think there's any reason not to read them. And I think people get anxiety if they haven't, but I do think that there's a better way to deal with that than declaring them not worth reading. And it's
the weird, like, I don't know, autoimmune response of social media, and like when suddenly like people turn into antibodies and like, oh, this person's a problem, I can like start attacking them because they spoke something.
Because reading their tweet made me angry, and it's like, maybe that's true. I don't know. I guess like there were so many big social media meltdowns in 2021 in the genre community, and I kind of needed a break from it because I just didn't think it was good for my mental health. Because a lot of it had to do with sort of the bullying of a trans author that happened in 2020, who was then nominated for a Hugo Award for that story in 2021, and some and the whole thing was rehashed again. And that was just one of the most disgraceful episodes I've seen ever on social media in the time I've been around. And, it's just really hard. Like, I think it's easy to forget on social media that we are all human beings with feelings. And that's not to say that you should be nice to jerks or not call people out or not like do all these things, but it's like, is it necessary for 4,000 people to tell someone who tweets, I don't like fan fiction, to tell that person like, you should die of inhaling fecal matter, or like, or someone who made a mistake in the past, like, it's just like, is the dog pile, is it worth it? Is it working in this way? And you see people taking these sides that I don't think allow for like nuance, where it's like, yes, as someone who read, Dangerous Visions, edited by Harlan Ellison, right? Like, yes, there is a lot of absolute trash in that book that I would not recommend to anyone, right? But several of those stories like changed my life, and they changed my relationship to the field. And like, I don't know, like sometimes I don't know.
There's a weird chronological flattening effect that social media brings to things, right? Like, I mean, I think about like what I read as a teenager and like the garbage stuff I read. But like, it allows for there to be some kind of progress, right? Like, you read one thing and then you love as a teenager, and then you come back to it like a decade later and like, oh, this is awful. But like, if I hadn't read this, I wouldn't have like been prepped to read this, and which leads me to this and this and this. And like, if I were going on Twitter talking about like, oh, I've been reading, Piers Anthony, and like, I kind of like the Xanth stuff.
Say, as someone who read like 20 of the Xanth books, I didn't even stop with color for panties. Like most people of my inclinations did. Like I read past it. I was like, all right, like
This is not a deal breaker, Piers.
I was just like, all right, this book has some horniness in it, and I am a young person who's like, I would like to subscribe to this newsletter of horniness. Like, and I mean, I think a lot of people probably, and that's just very weird, right? Like, I think that it's, as someone who was like a former objectivist, right? Like, and again, I'm not telling anyone to read Ayn Rand. I'm not saying go out and read Atlas Shrugged. I would never say that, right? Like, but I will say that I have had libertarians melt down because I can speak it better than them, right? Like not like it's very powerful to be like, oh really, so okay, so you think this about her, and like this is what your philosophy. Okay, so like, did you know that in her collected nonfiction she definitely said that you cannot be an objectivist if you are not a smoker? Are you a smoker? And it's just like no, and it's like, oh well then okay, so because she said objectively, you have to have a somewhat disregard for life to love it truly. So like, would you like to go to the Circle K? You know, and I mean, it's just so
I love
like
it.
all kinds of reasons that it's good to read things that are terrible. So
Well, and again, there's the the weird like reading will somehow taint you crowd, right? And I feel like I've not really been surrounded by that my life. I'm sure there have been folks who are like, oh, you can't read that. That's going to make like. And that's obviously what people raise up when there's any objection to Lovecraft. Like, oh, they think you're a racist if you read Lovecraft. I'm like, I hang out with incredibly obnoxious woke people, and like no one is like, don't read Lovecraft, it's going to make you racist. Like I've read the Turner Diaries, right? I understand that you can read like very bad stuff.
And there's no imperative to read the bad stuff either. Like there's no moral component to it in this way that I don't think that Twitter wants to accept. Like Twitter wants to make everything into a moral issue. Like, oh, like, I don't know. Because the other thing I saw when I was scrolling around literally just this morning when I saw all this happen. So I have no idea when this will air, but like, it'll be like flashback to when someone tweeted about Ted Lasso, I guess. And like people, the Ted Lasso thing is really interesting because I was lukewarm on Ted Lasso. I thought it was fine. I did. I thought it was quite wholesome and enjoyable. I don't care. My dad had a mustache. I don't need more mustache. It's like fine. But like that tweet about like people who like it are like Disney adults, or like it was just very ad hominem, I would say. And then it's just like, oh, you can't say anything about Ted Lasso. It's like you can say a lot of things. It's true that Ted Lasso fans are very aggressive in their fandom of this cheerful show. That is true, and I've seen it and experienced it. But like, that's not what. Not all things are the same. That person was being obnoxious, and if people were mean to them, then that's called a consequence.
Well, and this is where I think like things get really weird, right? Like there's in Twitter, there's like, what merits a consequence and what merits a dogpiling. And I think there's a difference between like someone saying something obnoxious and people being like, that was obnoxious, and then them screaming, oh, my freedom of speech, versus someone being like, here is a take, which may not be the best take, but it's a take, and people being like, you're gonna go to hell, and like we're gonna swarm you with bees, right? Like it's again the antibody effect versus just sort of like ew.
Yeah, and it's hard, right? Because like I can't remember my own tweets about Bean Dad. I can't. I have a distinct memory of Bean Dad happening. I remember discussing it with a friend when we were sitting outside on my patio with my wood burner going in our social distance once a week. We don't have vaccines hangout in like January or wherever it was, right? Like talking about Bean Dad. But I don't remember if I don't remember if I tweeted at him, if I quote, I don't remember, but it was one of the last times that I did so, and I still don't know. I mean, the jury's out on Bean Dad. He did seem like a jerk, but like, did the apocalypse that happened because of Bean Dad? I was like, that's a lot. Like, especially because while I understand that brought up a lot of things for people who had horrifying things happen in their childhood, I truly believe that child was fine. And I think he was being funny and failed.
Sure.
Like, so what do you do?
Yeah.
Right. It's like, just maybe we should not be on Twitter. Is there a way to correct, like, yes. I don't know. Is there a way to correct the effect that it has on us all in our minds? Like I left Twitter on Christmas. I left all social media except for Instagram, which I find soothing because it's like pictures of things. People don't fight on Instagram, not on my Instagram. People are like, here's my cat, here is my cupcake, here is this picture of my great new book cover. Like that's what I see on Instagram, right? And so like on New Year's Eve, I shut it all down, and like I have been more productive this year than I was pretty much all of last year. And
well,
so like
that's a perfect segue into just what have you been productive at, Miss
I have
Tanzer?
been I worked on a short story, and I've been working on, can I call it my new novel? I don't know. I have been working on this novel forever, and it has thwarted me in every regard, and I was gonna throw it away and start over rather than keep working on it, but I had a brainwave on it, and now I'm working on it again, and so that's really good. And
Yeah.
it's happened in a long time, so I do feel like there's been a correlation doesn't equal causation, and yet I am writing more and not on Twitter, and I don't think there's any reason not to wholesomely correlate those things, even if they are not naturally.
You know what? If you need a lucky penny to hold on to, if the lucky penny is stay off Twitter, you're better for it.
I give myself one of the classic energy stickers in my planner if I stay off of social media for the day.
Nice.
So yeah.
Nice.
I did it. Yeah, that's right.
Whereas I'm doing the opposite and finding new social media like
yeah, you're like a TikTok star.
Biomes to crawl into, and
it's so cool to see all of what has been happening on TikTok, even though I don't understand it because I don't have the app, and so I just a drama kid app. I don't know. It's very weird.
It's definitely drama kids for like people my generation, which I think really annoyed the youngs. Like when the 90s like drama kids like, oh wait,
no.
we
can act online.
I could be extra, and people will pay attention to me. They're like, no, it's not for you. Stop it. So,
oh no.
But I have been having fun, and I have been enjoying it. And
it's really cool.
I'll take whatever, attention I can get as a drama kid.
I think it's great. And like, I don't know, I just saw something on TikTok where like maybe the identity of a recent tragedy, like the person was first identified on TikTok, and like and like, so it is like a powerful tool in the way that Twitter was a powerful tool. Like when the Black Lives Matter movement started, like it really helped educate me, and I learned a lot. And it's hard. I miss my friends. I do. Like I miss knowing what's going on in their lives, but also like you can't, it's like, I'll just when I want to know, I'll ask, right? Yeah. Like I could also text them.
Sure.
How's it going?
Well, as you have the various projects that you are working on right now that we are very excited to find out more and more about, I do know that you've also got an older project that's getting up at some potential love coming down the pipeline. What can you tell us about some Ibn Ghazi business?
Oh yeah, so I wrote a novelette in 2019, 1,000 years ago.
The before times.
The before times. It really was literally the before times, because I finished it in November of 2019. And it was published last year by the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction. And it is now, okay, so to just explain to people who might not understand this, because it's a complicated situation, like the Locus Award. So Locus is it's our industry periodical, right? In science fiction and fantasy and horror. Locus does the announcements, and it's a really good publication, and everyone should subscribe to it because it is the way to stay up on the genre news, just in my opinion. But anyway, back to me. They run an award, and I have described it to non-members of the community as sort of like the Screen Actors Guild award of, I guess, similar to a little bit of this industry. And basically like, they create, the Locus Award is for all different kinds of categories, including novelette, which is where Ibn Ghazi has appeared on the recommended reading list. Now, the Locus Award is multi-tier, and so to appear on the recommended reading list is absolutely an honor, but people vote on the recommended reading list to then create the shortlist. So I have not been shortlisted for this award. I'm trying to get shortlisted for this award, and anyone can vote for the Locus Awards. Subscribers' points count twice, which is nice for me because I'm a subscriber, and all the people that I read last year, which was great because I was on an award jury myself last year, and I got to read like the most fabulous things. But you can just log in and you can vote. And I've been saying too that I'm happy to send a copy of my novelette to people who might like to look it over, who are looking at their awards. I have a PDF I've been sending around. And then also I've gotten word that it will be reprinted in Apex online sometime during March. And so like at some point it will just be free to read online. And Apex is a great magazine. So there will be other great stuff in there that issue too.
So when will you know when it's officially shortlisted, or is that all kind of?
Oh, it'll be, I think voting is open until April 15th.
April 15th. Okay.
And
so after it's gone through Apex.
Yeah. Oh yes. It'll be up for reading for the month of, it's for some amount of time in March. I don't know when in March. But they were kind enough to do that. And then, yeah, so it'll be available to read. And it is Lovecraftian, which makes it sort of germane to this After Dark. And it is about Ibn Ghazi, who is not really a major figure in Lovecraftiana at all. He appears once, I think, in the Dunwich Horror, and is it Wilbur Whatley? I don't know. Or is he the son or the maybe one of the Whatleys?
One of the Whateleys, whatever.
Is it Whately? I don't know. Is it what is it?
I think it's Whately, isn't it?
Is it Whately?
I could be mistaken.
I'm always interested in what the correct pronunciations of things are supposed to be. And so, okay, so the Whately. So one of the Whateleys has it, and it reveals the unseen, right? It's the powder that I don't know. And so I wrote a short story about this guy and his powder, and it kind of came to me. The story is a weird. I was like, should I tell the story? And I think I will. So the story is that this is real. I was playing Arkham Horror with a bunch of friends years ago. Like it had to have been 2011 or 2012 because I had an iPhone, and I think that's right. 2012 is when I got my first iPhone. And we were playing Arkham Horror, and I drew the card, the Powder of Ibn Ghazi, which is like a weapon. It's like a physical weapon or something. And I was like, man, I really loved that short story in the Garden of Ibn Ghazi. And I was like, how did that end? And I like looked on my phone, and the story did not exist. And I was like, that's weird. I'm sure I read this story. I know I did. And I looked and looked and looked and looked and looked and looked. I even contacted editors that I know to be like, I think I read the story in your magazine. Like, is this a real story? No, it never existed. I could never find it. And it would bother me every once in a while, and I would go looking for it again because it's just kind of would drive me nuts. So anyway, in 2019, I was playing Arkham Horror with some friends, and I drew the card again. And I was like, does the story actually exist? Right. And then it still wasn't around. And I was like, it's like, I have to write it. I have to write the story. Like, this is now a story I'm going to write. The story does not exist. The title had never been taken. Like,
you incepted yourself, Molly.
I did incept myself. I did. And it was also like such a classic setup for a Lovecraftian premise, right? That I was like, I'm going to write a story with a writer at the heart of it who is not me, but similar to it's a very familiar voice, but I did not have any of these later things. It's the setup that I used. And so the setup is a writer who had the same thing happen with Arkham Horror and is a nerd in writing, and then was like, this really bothered me. And then the writer who never is sort of given there's no pronoun associated with this. I tried really hard to make sure there was no pronoun associated with this writer, but this writer gives an interview, I think the Paris Review or something, which I have never done, and talks about this. And then a bunch of people contact them and try to help. But then this person gets an invitation that's like, we are current from a play producer who's like, we would love to have you come out and see our most recent production. We're producing a play by the name of In the Garden of Ibn Ghazi, and we would love to come and have you see it because, like, you know, and because we found the text, and it gets really weird from there. So it was fun. Sorry, that was a long story.
It's someone who got a chance to take a look at it. It is a fun story, and I think folks should check it out when it comes to Apex. And if you are interested in voting for the Locus,
yeah, it's a great award, and there's a lot of things that are up. And if you're a reader of science fiction and fantasy, there's like so many good things that I saw, and they actually really break it down because they do fantasy novel, science fiction novel, horror novel, first novel, YA novel, and like, so you can actually like, there's like such a huge amount that you may have encountered or wish to encounter, and then they give you a long time to read. And You can just really actually find like really wonderful things that were published the previous year just by like reading through all the short stories and, even finding new magazines and editors.
It's very cool. Well, thank you for sharing and letting us know. We look forward to seeing it coming out again.
Thanks. Yeah. Fun.
Now, one pastime I know you've gotten up to now when you're not on social media is you've decided to show some love finally to the wonderful micro sci-fi genre of 1990s space bus station television shows.
I was like, where is this going? What's happening?
Molly, tell us about your journey through Deep Space Nine, and now you're slightly toe dipping into Babylon 5.
I'm going to try to. I don't know what happened, but like the three shows I'm watching right now are The Sopranos. I've never seen. Inuyasha, which I have also never seen. I don't know. I like loved Ranma. And now, as of a couple nights ago, I started Babylon 5. So I don't know. I don't know what this modern world is. I am a time traveler from the 90s.
You're a time traveler from like someone who has their like college cable plan.
Yeah.
And
yes. Yeah. No, it's very, very weird.
In 2004 or whatever.
Yeah. And then like I had this weird late summer where everything in Colorado bloomed and went. We had the most amazing harvests last year where like, I'm still traumatized by how many apples were on my apple tree. Like, and I made a joke about the walnuts episode of Dick Van Dyke, and no one had any idea what I was talking about. But if you are a similar weird shut-in who only watched Turner Classic Movies as a child like me and listening to this, then you will laugh as well. But there were so many apples on my apple tree, and my garden just went, it went gangbusters, and everyone's fruit trees went nuts. And so I decided to try to preserve as much as possible. And I was like, well, if I'm going to be standing in the kitchen, I guess I might as well watch all of Deep Space Nine finally. Because I am a Trekkie, and I was actively in a Star Trek game at that time. It has concluded. I was the captain of my Star Trek club in college for a semester, and allocated funds that hadn't been used to giving all of the officers messenger bags that had the Rollins crest translated into Klingon embroidered on them. So like I should have seen it by now. I'd seen some episodes. I had just never watched Deep Space Nine, and as you know, have always maintained that was terrible. So,
and now what do you maintain, Molly?
I maintain that it should not take 5 seasons for a show to get good.
That's fair. That is,
but fair. It does get good, and so okay. But it should not take that long. It should not be the second to last episode of your 5th season when Jeffrey Combs shows up. That is the first good episode of your show. This ain't no Yesterday's Enterprise 2 and 3 episodes of a season. This is like years of trying to figure out how to write. Like
there have been good episodes, mostly like Miles O'Brien episodes, but like the clone episode, that's a good one.
The clone, he's cloned? I remember him going to the future and then coming back.
There's a bunch of them that like were, because after a while the writers were like, we're just gonna make Miles suffer. There's the Donnie Brasco Miles O'Brien episode. There's the one where like an alien race has like created like a clone replica of him, and it's all from the replica's point of view. So like he's getting more and more paranoid because like everyone knows he's a replica, and they're like shutting him out of security and whatnot. So it's this great like paranoia, but in reverse. And then there's the mind prison, which is like
I hate all that stuff, and
I love it so much, Molly.
I hate that stuff. I hate that stuff. It shouldn't be every 3rd episode that you turn the lights down on your set and everybody runs around acting crazy.
I disagree.
No, you know what? They should have started an improv club, and they should have just had drama night or something where it's like, okay, today I'm interpreting my character, but now I'm sexy. And it's like, you don't need 5 episodes in the Negaverse for that. Not a single good thing happened in the Negaverse. Like, no, I refuse to accept this.
Look, sometimes the cast and crew just want to dress up as James Bond and have a night out. Okay, Molly?
You don't even like Vic Fontaine.
I'm not talking about I'm not talking about Dick Fontaine. I am talking about the transporter holodeck like mishap where they just do James Bond, and you've got like Worf is like the poker daddy, and Miles O'Brien is like Falcon with his eye patch.
Right.
And it's so good. Oh, it's so good and it's so great. I love it. I love it, Molly.
I know. I'm glad you do. I am. I'm sincerely glad. I just like to make fun of Deep Space Nine to annoy you. Maybe I'm the annoying
It's
one.
fair.
You're the one annoying me.
It's a relationship of mutual Deep Space Nine, like aggrandizement.
There were things about it I really thought were so good, but I just question a lot of their choices. And I want to live in the Berenstein universe where Ro Lauren
was Kira.
Yeah. Because I feel like I really would have liked that show, but I never took to Kira.
That's fair.
Ever. I could never relate to her.
I didn't like her when like I was originally watching the series, like as a high schooler. Like in my rewatches, I maybe just because like I know where that character goes, I've enjoyed her more. But like she's a lot, and she's like very like there's a lot of 90s.
It's the 90s. I'm a woman with shoulder pads. Like, oh my God, I can't.
I'm not going to have a man tell me what to do. Like,
absolutely not. I've got a Judith Butler haircut, and I'm not taking any sass. And it's just like, what is going on in this show? Like, none of the dames were any good, in my opinion. Like,
I will confess to having had a massive Terry Farrell crush, but like when I do rewatch, man, oof.
I want to like Dax. She left because she wasn't good. I am justified. Like, she was like, this sucks, right?
She went to be on Becker. No, I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was one of these situations where like she wanted to go or they wanted her to go or what. I
heard things, but who knows if any of them are true. So I don't know. I guess I just am like, it's not progressive to have a woman be your chief science officer if Miles O'Brien is always like, haven't you ever heard of tachyons? And I'm like, I hate this. Like, why isn't she smart? Like, she's the science person. She's got extra hair. She should have more brain.
With like 300 years of experience.
She should be so much different. Like, she just should have been, I mean, she's just like hamstrung by the 90s. I feel like it's just the problem of the 90s where we didn't know what to do with women at that point in anywhere, but especially in science fiction where it's just like, I don't know. People hate Hillary Clinton, but they're supposed to fuck us now. I don't know. What do we do? Like, it's just like, I don't know either.
Well, and there's the tension of like them trying to do interesting storytelling, right? Like trying to tell like kind of like towing the line of telling some queer storytelling with her and like her like past lives.
I love that episode.
Like and playing with memory and playing with like senses of self.
I liked the one. I mean, like somebody said that when I was watching Deep Space Nine, I saw it when they said that actually like people talk about the Trill as sort of like a trans stand-in on Star Trek because it has a lot to do with like, oh, my pronouns are different, but actually the Trill are a great trans stand-in because the government doesn't want you to know that like that many people actually could do it and that like it's right there for you. And I was like, oh my God, I love this, right? Like it should be more accessible. And I was like, I'm listening, like, I love this. And so I liked a lot of what they were doing. I actually liked her weird. I blocked out my memories of my sociopathic. That's good. It's good. There is a core there. I did like Garrick. I didn't like it when he had a girlfriend, but that's fine.
Well, I think they got worried about his sexual energy and we're trying to find a way to dilute that.
I wouldn't have been worried about that at all, but it was a different time. But like, yeah, I guess, but I do feel like I guess I do feel like that girl got done dirtier than anybody else on that show.
No,
like,
it was like it was awful. Like that just was
her death scene. I was just like, everyone thinks like this show only thought it was dark until that, and I was like, that actually is dark, but not in a way I think you wanted. Like that's when he's just like, should I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
No, this is very different from like we don't turn the lights on in our space station. Like I don't know. Like
well, same thing with Ducat, right? Like they were like, "Ooh, will they? Won't they?" Kira Ducat. Like you have established that like Ducat is like a rapist and like
a Nazi,
and so like no, there's no like ooh, he's a bad boy.
And also like he banged her mom. Like that's weird too. It's like
and is fixated on her. Like they're like, oh, he's a charming stalker. He's John Cusack. It's like, no, guys. I was freaky. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to get into my like heavy critiques of Deep Space Nine because it's not the genre for that, right? But like I was definitely like, there's always some kind of Twitter problem, and there should be when another romance book comes out where it's like she was a blonde Jew in Auschwitz and he fell in love with her
and learn not to be a Nazi. And I'm like, no, okay, that's all. Like, I'm right.
I do.
That has like the same energy of that. And it's like, no, like she would not want.
Well, no, like, dude, I mean, so many of the relationships on that show were all over the place. Like, just like Miles and Keiko, like there needed to be like a very special, like Deep Space Nine, like teaches divorce and like, hey, Molly, your parents still love you, but they obviously don't belong together.
I don't understand. Maybe Keiko is at the bottom of the pile when it comes to what they did to women on that show, because like I don't understand. I mean, she was always terrible on Next Gen. Like, I'm not saying there's ever been a good Keiko episode, but I am saying that like they didn't have to make her. This isn't a documentary. They didn't have to make her so bad. This isn't like the happenings of Deep Space Nine, for PBS, right? Like, she didn't have to be. She could have been like, I got therapy in the space between the Enterprise and here, and now I'm not so shrill and terrible all the time. No.
Oh man, yes. Well, and when they try to do like space therapy, that's when Vic Fontaine shows up and it's like, oh, my PTSD, I need to hang out with this guy. And I'm like, no, you don't.
Oh my God.
No, there's so many better places you could go hang out.
I don't know how I felt about that episode at all. I was like, I don't know if Deep Space Nine is the medium in which to address this issue. Like, because Deep Space Nine also thinks it is like the time and the place to address things, and it's like, no, it is not. Like, Deep Space Nine is not the place to address, for example, like, how do we deal with PTSD like that? I'm sorry, like, it's just a little.
Well, I'll tell you what was fascinating was going back and doing a rewatch of Deep Space Nine after watching Battlestar Galactica and realizing that Ron Moore was treating Deep Space Nine as his like first draft of so many ideas. Like, even the whole like Weyoun clone thing, the fact that like they had to be close to the ship in order to get all the memories back, they completely reused that with the Cylons and how like the Cylons regenerate. Like,
I never watched Battlestar Galactica.
I mean, Battlestar Galactica was very 9/11-y, but like that episode or series of episodes where like the Federation is getting like weirdly post 9/11-y and like,
oh, the good ones. Right? The really good two-parter.
Oh yeah. Ron Moore came in later at the like.
Yeah. I watched that on the 20th anniversary of 9/11 unintentionally, but It was super weird. It was like I was there canning apples and it came on and I was like listening and I'm just like, I don't.
Yeah.
They're making literally the Patriot Act. This was, and I was like, what year did this come? Oh my God, it's 1998 or something. And I was, those were two, again, like very good episodes that I thought were like what Deep Space Nine really could be, as opposed to like, you're turning 30 and it's time to be weird. And I'm like, I hate this. Like,
the tennis balls, Molly, the tennis balls.
I don't like a fistful of datas either. I don't want that episode. I don't want I Am Not a Married Man. Like, I don't think Star Trek doesn't have to be serious for me, but I also just don't want that. Like,
I showed my kids, I introduced them to Next Generation with the Robin Hood episode.
I mean, that's a good move because Vosh is the most aspirational character for me in all of Star Trek, but at the same time, like, not that episode.
She gets some Deep Space Nine love. She gets to show up. That was the first episode of Deep Space Nine I ever watched. Oh
my God, really? I watched it when it came on. I mean, like, I watched every single episode of Next Gen as it came out, including the part 2 finale when we had just moved to Florida and I was sitting there with my nose pressed to the TV because we hadn't hung curtains yet and I couldn't see anything because of the glare on the old
CRTs.
I don't know when I tapped on Deep Space Nine, but I did at some point and was just like, no. And I tried with, maybe if I have another bumper apple crop this year, maybe I'll finally watch Voyager.
Voyager. I turned off the pilot and went to go play video games. Like, I was trying. I was like, no. I'm so excited.
I should like it. I just am like, why is Janeway suck? Like, why don't any of them have a consistent character? I have that question with Deep Space Nine plenty of times too, because like plenty of times Dax would be like, but I love him with all my heart. And it's like, you fell in love 2 episodes ago and you were going to like transmit your consciousness through time for some guy that you met at a dinner party. I don't like, calm down. Like, you are so boy crazy. Like, it's calm down. And like, I don't know, like Janeway, it all the same problem on Voyager where it's just like, what are they like episode to episode? What?
Well, and it was interesting. So we're gonna conflate some things because when we met in Portland, we also got to meet Jeffrey Combs.
Yes.
And
you snaked one time I got to talk to him by being like, I loved you as Weyoun. And he was like, I'm not interested in this girl. here's who's really talking to me about what I want.
I clocked that he was very done with horror
Yes.
at that convention. Man alive. Like it was
It was day one.
It was the Q&A. It was the Q&A where he was like, I'm really, I don't like the fact that I've just been sort of pigeonholed as this with Reanimator and horror. And I really have other things I'm interested in doing. And as an actor, you're excited about blah, blah, blah. Anyway, next question. Which Gordon Stewart movie did you like? And he was like, I just answered this question. What's wrong with you?
Did happen. I wasn't trying to nerd out on him or anything.
You were fine. I was obnoxious.
No, you were not. He like was so excited, and I was like, I can't be mad because this man is happy, but also like
it was poor timing on my part.
No,
it was. I was being
timing. It was
Molly. I was being a brat. You don't have to stand up. It's okay.
It's really not. I don't think about it. I loved it. It's been a fond memory of mine for many a year where it's just like, damn. And now I'm like, Bane actually was dope. And I wish I had seen these because then I could have been like, yes, that's actually true.
But he talked about how like weirdly schizophrenic the show was because the writers wanted to like tell these big, broad, long stories, and the producers and sort of Paramount and whatever was like, no, new alien at the bus stop. We don't want to, we need to reset. People don't care about like growth.
Yeah. So I mean, and I guess I just feel that next gen, it's weird. Next gen is next gen, right? Like they do grow and change. They do, but it's not because of their arcs. It's just because the actors get good at acting or what. I don't know. The weird, friendly energy of that show is so wholesome that you do feel that growth and change happens without explicit growth and change arcs. And I really like that about it. But Deep Space Nine, it's like, yeah, they only got real at the end. And before that, I had been told by all these Deep Space Nine truthers that it's like, oh, it actually has real storytelling. And I'm like, like, keep like ragging on it on Twitter and like calling people out like by name, by like their birthday, right? Like, and it's just like, oh wait, no, it does get good. I'm sorry. I was rude. This show does get good at the end. All right, fine.
I'm going to be interested to see your take on Babylon 5 because the shows do compare. And there's a lot of folks that say that like, he pitched it as a Star Trek show and they turned him down and then they like stole his notes and like reskinned it as Deep
I've
Space
heard a different version of the story 1,000 times. Now, what I heard was that they pitched Babylon 5 and they were getting the runaround from the studio and then they got shit canned. And then 2 weeks later, it was like Deep Space Nine. And like, and that may be true. I don't know anything about this because this is not the kind of thing I know about. No. But I will say that all the people that are Babylon 5 people who get really uptight about how Deep Space Nine stole Babylon 5, well, having just watched the pilot for Babylon 5, the entire plot is like, what if Star Trek's Medusans were here now? So I don't know who's stealing what. I'm just saying that I am very conversant in old Trek and like that they stole everything from Star Trek.
It's interesting. I mean, I think one of the things that Babylon 5 has, one of its strengths, and also to some degree its weakness, is the fact that J. Michael Straczynski was like an anaconda wrapped around that capybara and was not going to let it go. And so like you get that guiding like vision
you get sure.
throughout the entire run. And like he had plans. He was like set for like, okay, if we lose this actor, here is how we trapdoor out their character and the story can continue on. Like, and you see that. You literally see like, when like, oh, this actor has to leave, like the story goes on. Sometimes they literally just like replace them with an actor that looks just like them with a slightly different name. And you're like, yeah. But
I will see. I've only seen the 90-minute made-for-TV pilot movie, whatever it was, where none of the characters are the same. I've been told.
Yeah, and they swap out sort of anyway. You'll if you continue, the show does some interesting stuff. But it was like it did have a very cohesive tone, which Trek does not have.
No, and I mean,
no one gets turned into children or stuck in an elevator with children or eaten by tar monsters.
I mean, I am excited to see it. And even if I was being silly about it, just because I mean, the Medusans episode of original series is one of my very, 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 very favorites. But it was like literally the same concept. And all I've heard from Babylon 5 people are like, it's the only original show. Star Trek is just and I'm like, everybody sit down. We are going to talk this out. I will watch both shows and I will decide. And then we finally. And then you can all ask me what the correct opinion is, and I will tell you. So like
you're gonna sit in your giant floaty Q chair.
I will.
With your big hat.
I will. I'll be like, neither. Move on. Like, yeah. And then I'll be like, and don't even get me started on Firefly, and like fade into the background.
This is a Lex household.
Oh my God, no. It was not that, or what's the one that I thought Babylon 5?
Farscape is the other one that my wife is super into. So
Farscape is the one that I thought Babylon 5 was, but when I was like, like that girl who was blue and she had hair and she was naked, and they were like, no, that's Farscape. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, Farscape is Space Muppets. That's like Jim Henson going out to Australia and just having like
too far in the Muppet direction. And
yeah,
for many.
Babylon 5 was interesting because I remember like when it came out, my older brothers very snarkily were like, okay, so in Star Trek, when everything's like makeup is here, Babylon 5, all the makeup is back here. And that is the main distinction between these shows. Everyone's got frills.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you're going to find that there is some massive 90s-itis also in this show. Like it gets very like, we're gonna discuss. I mean, you thought like Bajor and Cardassia had like weird, like, I don't know, Palestine, Northern Ireland, like sort of
anything.
vibes.
You're just anything. Never mind. I said I wouldn't, but like, yes, it's just whatever you need. It's the that's Bajorans. They're just the oppressed.
They like there's some J. Michael Straczynski is working out some model UN like.
Oh yeah, that's funny. I mean, that's the first episode, right? The premise is like all the ambassadors are coming, but get excited, and I'm like, I'm not excited. That's not a good premise. Like, you see why that's not exciting? Like, you see, do we remember?
There are going to be committees, Molly. Committees.
You remember the Phantom Menace, where like it's like, first of all, I don't want to get started, but like we still don't know what the menace is, and it's like I'm reading the opening scroll, and I'm like, I was never even part of debate team. I only did interp events. I don't care about this at all.
Nice.
Do you think I read the paper? Like I'm a sophomore. Like, I don't know. It was just like,
oh man. Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, I'm excited. I mean, people who love Babylon 5 have so much good things to say about it. And I love Trek warts and all. And so I'm coming at it with an open heart. I just like to rag on science fiction that is crummy. So
I think, and that's fair. And there are parts of Babylon 5 that are super crummy. Just as
that pilot, there was not a single redeeming thing in that pilot, honestly.
What Walter Koenig was in it. Fox did so much promoing of Walter Koenig being on this show and being in this.
Who is he?
He's Bester, the little like secrets like telepath spy group.
He was in the pilot.
I thought there's like a TV movie or like two-parter thing, where like the giant like snail like armor ambassador gets like sick.
That's what I saw.
And they have to like crack him open and look inside.
They have to look at the Medusa. Yeah, that's the.
Yeah, I thought that Walter Koenig was in that, because that was the thing. They had a Star Trek guy, and they're like, look, we have a Star Trek guy. We have like Alexander the Great's generals parading around like bits of his body. It's like, look, we are the true heirs.
Follow the shoe. Yeah, I guess I didn't recognize him because I never recognize actors in anything. I was very distracted by how absolutely astonishingly charisma free every single actor was that was in that entire 90-minute. I was like, did you screen test any of these people? Like that man, like the man
are you talking about the captain? Are you talking about Commander?
He's a commander, but yes, Commander.
I have bushy eyebrows. That's all I need.
I guess like I don't know. I mean, I made an unkind crack in the first couple of minutes as I was watching this, which is like, this is the 90s battle of who has more diverse space cops. And I'm sorry, I'm just putting it out there that like, it just was very weird that the conception of the future in sort of 90s science fiction television was, in the future, our cops will be more diverse. And it's like, as it turned out, that didn't work. So this is an interesting time to be watching the space cop shows, because in this one, because they both have that premise of the future is diverse, but humans are the best that's out there. And so we're going to go to space and be the hall monitors for everyone else. And it's like,
we've earned it, baby.
I have some questions, like I really do, about this entire premise. And like, yeah, like it's just like we needed more than just that.
I think if that is right now, you're kind of big concerned with Babylon 5. I think you'll actually be happy with it. I think like there's some interesting 90s era distrust of authority that's
not what I saw in this 90-minute thing. So maybe it will get different. This was like,
yeah,
humanity is the only group sane enough to reconcile the space elves to the other people. I don't even understand. Like, I don't know. Like
the Mimbari.
I was like, they literally have magic rings. You made space elves. This is like the second, whatever that spinoff was of what's the other show from the 90s?
There's so many. Stargate Atlantis.
Another space ops show.
That's space military.
I maintain actually that Stargate Sg1 is the sequel to Twin Peaks. And that's what happened.
Because the general isn't.
That's where he went. Like when he disappears, right? He like went into the Stargate program and doesn't remember like the White Lodge. I don't remember.
He just went from went from the Pacific Northwest just into like Vancouver. That's he just crossed the border.
He did. It was really close. He was just a little messed up for a couple of nights and then he woke up. He's like, oh, I still have my rank. Yeah. So like, anyway, like, why was I talking about a Stargate? Sorry. They had the sequel that was space elves that sucked your chi, right? And I was like,
I did not get into the Stargate series, so
it's not good. That's why. Like having seen a lot of Stargate SG1 and refused to watch Stargate, sure. Different Handsome Man.
Stargate, like now Merlin is a character or something.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, that's Stargate. Yeah, it was like the character design looked similar to that, right? Where it's like I'm an elf from space, and then there was like sexual harasser man, and then there was who I couldn't believe
MacGyver was on there, right? Like that was his
Stargate.
Yeah.
No, and on Babylon 5, there was Space Elf, and then there was Medusan, and then there was like the man who made the most provocative pass at the world's worst telepath that I have ever seen.
Oh, is this blonde? Is this the Winters, Talia Winters? Is that who's their telepath lady in the first season?
Layla Shrillface. I don't know. She was this redhead that like
I'm looking up the Lyta Alexander. No.
Lyta Alexander. Thank you. Yeah. Lyta Alexander. I don't think she survives past the pilot too, but she comes on and she's like, I've got shoulder pads and I'm a telepath. And like,
oh, there we go. Yeah. There you go. Yes,
and then
those are some shoulder pads.
Yeah. And then the guy with the big face and the big chin.
There's Jerry Doyle, who's that is Andrew Katz. It's the one-armed man from The Fugitive. Andreas Katsoulis. Jakar, who's like baldy and like covered in like
no, not the vampire. There's
Londo. There's Londo, who's like Italian vampire.
Yeah. Londo.
And then there's big head, big face, like big chin guy is Jakar. And that's Andreas Katsoulis, who's like amazing character actor.
Well, in this one, he proposed having unconscious sex with the telepath to breed psychics into his race. And was like, you don't have to be awake, but I'd prefer it if you think you can handle the pleasure. And I was like, what is up the 90s? Like, hello, like I cannot.
It's been a while since I've seen the opening movie. I can't remember if that was Jakar or not. Jakar and Londo were definitely the like Odo and Quark. Like they're the like we're gonna be at each other's.
It wasn't the guy with the hair.
Okay, yeah. There's Londo's guy with hair. Jakar is like all covered in plaster with like red, red sclera content.
Turtle guy.
Maybe. Anyway, got he sort of looks like Ivan Ooze. Like he's got like slightly Ivan Ooze face. Yeah. Okay, I think that sounds like talking about like too much pleasure sounds like Jakar. So
yeah, no, it wasn't Londo. Londo was gambling in the casino, and that's why he was a suspect. I don't know. I don't know.
And his little. So there's some really weird like So Bill Mumy, Bill Mumy, who was like in Lost in Space or whatever, is like his little kid is one of the space elves, like attaches.
I hear that when the season gets going, all of the aliens get like a mini alien.
Yeah, Londo gets one of the little like sad frat guys from Animal House. Like is like his little like follow along, and it's great. It's like it's so much fun. Like
I'm really excited. I am, even though it's probably not apparent from the just roasting I am giving this. Like I roast because I love, and I don't know if I love this yet, but I roast because I enjoy 90s television.
There's some interesting, like you could look at parallels between like this and X-Files. Like there's like the earnestness, but also the like kind of like slightly paranoia, and like I don't know, like there's some interesting. It is definitely earnest television. Like it has that earnest 90s quality. Just
I like it does feel sincere in the story it wants to tell. And actually I felt that Deep Space Nine was best when it was sincere, and when it wasn't, that's when I was getting an allergy to it, because I just didn't have enough affection for the characters to want to see them do their acting warm-ups, instead of
their acting warm-ups. I like when they go to the 1950s, Molly.
The fifth, that was fine. When there's a premise like that, okay, but when it's like, in my own mind, in these darkened sound stages, my friends will appear to me like three ghosts on Christmas Eve. It's just like, everyone should know already. What's up? This happens every week. It's literally normal.
They're just having a good time. They're just having a good time, Molly.
Well, I'm not.
My favorite is when they're like, we need to go to a different space station. That was Deep Space 8. And it's our set, but different. But like we've taken all the like market stuff out of it.
I have to say, I very much was intrigued by the whole Babylon 4 just disappeared one day after it came online. That's very interesting to me. And I know that will, I suspect that throwaway line will come back many, many times. Because I've heard that actually, if you watch early Babylon 5 and pay attention to what people are saying, then you're like, oh my God, the thing. And
well, again, this is like J. Michael Straczynski was in charge and like could do that. He could set stuff up and then have payoff for it later. And that's really cool. That is something that's really fun to see.
It is really and rare for that time, and I'm intrigued to see it play out. And I'm still very much quarantining, so I'll probably finish this show at some point. And
there's always gonna be more apples, Molly.
Yeah, I know, right? That's for Voyager. No, right now it's The Sopranos, which is so much better than if I told of all the things I could go back and tell myself in 2002 that I would never believe about me in 2022, that I was watching The Sopranos would probably be closer to the list, top of the list than Global Pandemic. Like that, like it's just like, what? No, that's not you at all. And I'm like, the show rules, actually. Like, this is really good.
Well, that is fantastic. I'm only watching cool new things because I'm an influencer now.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Right. Chaboy.
I'm Chaboy. I'm super hooked on the new Apple TV show Severance, where Adam Scott works for like a sketchy like pharma company where when you go to work, you like get your memories bifurcated. So while you're at work, you have no memory of who you were and like before you like on off hours. And then when you're done working, you have no memory of what happened while you were at work. So it's like his two selves, his work self and his home self.
That sounds really good, actually. And that is a premise.
Like the cheap description of it is that it's Twin Peaks meets Office Space, but it's so much weirder. Like it's so much stranger and has such a great cast. John Turturro is in it. Chris Walken is just like hanging out from time to time. Patricia Arquette is great. It is
Adam Scott, like the wholesome boyfriend from Parks and Rec, who was then scary in The Good Place.
He was scary in well, I mean, yes, he was in the good. He was a jerk in The Good Place.
Yeah, right. But he was also like, I mean, he was like
he was a demon.
Demon. Yeah, right. Like, yeah.
But this is like, this is an interesting, like, let's really dive into corporate alienation.
I love things about memory and weird, so that sounds really good. I've only ever on Apple TV watched Foundation, which I was only watching this sounds really bad, but I don't mean it this way, but I was only watching it as a bit to tell my boyfriend, because it would infuriate him so much to hear how stupid it was, that I was like, I'm absolutely watching every episode of the show to tell him about it.
No,
Because if we can't heckle our significant others with a bit they hate, then what have we lost?
I mean, like
yeah.
I am only on TikTok so that I could annoy my wife. That is everything that has happened since then. My always has been content, like everything has flown from the fact that I was like, oh, well, I have to have an account if I'm going to leave obnoxious comments. So I guess I'll do a thing.
Same energy, right? Like he wanted to watch it, and I was like, we can. I have Apple TV, and we watched a few episodes, and he was just like,
not good.
And I'm like, oh, I'll finish this up. I cannot wait to just watch this terrible show and recount it and just be like that. And it was just really fun. I'll absolutely watch it. There's the second season. I'll be there.
Well done. That is commitment to a bit, Molly. And that is why you have been one of our favorite friends of the program here at Ask Lovecraft.
One of my favorite programs. Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming on. I know you're giving yourself your gold star for staying off Twitter, but our viewers don't have to give themselves gold stars. If they are looking for you out there in the digital sphere, where can they go?
They can go to Instagram, where I am at Molly_Tanzer. I am at Wicked Milk Hotel on Twitter, but I usually have my name and I'm not Molly Tanzer with the locked account. That's like a CPA. She got the name first. There's one more. She is not me. I'm the one that usually says something like a finger wagging scold or a lit row or things like that. That is me. And, you know, I do plan on returning a little bit more, especially when I have more things to promote. But right now it's like I should write the things and then come back to then promote them. But yeah, that's where I am. I'm on Facebook too, but I'm usually very weird about friend requests. So if you like send one, then being like, I saw you on Ask Lovecraft, I'll be like, I'll accept this person, because it's not like a person who's like trying to get me, which is what I perceive Facebook requests usually are.
That is fair.
Yeah.
And you got your author site, correct? Is that still up?
Yeah, you could go to I do have a website. Oh, I have a Patreon too. You could go there. Like that's also, I could think about these things before I do these kinds of programs. I do have a Patreon, a pet Patreon, whatever I don't know how to say it. I'm sorry.
You're fine.
It's basically pictures of my cat and writing updates about my life. And my cat is very handsome. And so I'm surprised he didn't come in to say hi. And he's very photogenic, and I like to take pictures of him. And so I do have a Patreon, and so you can, those links are on my social media though. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Molly. This has been a blast. It has been a journey. Remember, folks, Ibn Ghazi will be coming to Apex Magazine next month, and you will have until April 15th to vote on it. If folks are interested in this program, this is Ask Lovecraft After Dark, the sister program to Ask Lovecraft, which has been running for 10 years and is slowing down its regular cycle. I think there will still be things like After Dark and various one-offs and live shows that'll stay on the website. So it's not going anywhere. I'm just not doing a weekly show anymore because I'm old and tired.
You're free to explore your creative impulses in whatever direction that they flow. I think it's really important. And like, I hope that renewal finds you in good ways.
Yeah, well, it's been nice to continue to have creative outlets. It's, obviously being a mayor uses some of my creativity from time to time. But otherwise,
more Sagan content.
I cut my hair before doing Sagan last time. It was poor timing on my part, so I have to wait a bit until it goes back out. Yeah. But folks can find out just generally what's going on at LehmanKessler.com. You can check out Twitter at Lehman Kessler. If you want to see what's happening on the strangeness that is TikTok, I am Mayor Lovecraft over there, so I'm really committed to the brand now. But thank you all so much for watching. Molly, thank you so much for being on the show and for being our friend.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And, I can't wait to see what happens next with all of this.
Yes, indeed. Bye, all.
Thanks, everyone.